For as long as I can remember, people have been asking me for a parts list for their own build on their C6 ZO6. So today we're going to be talking about what modifications you need to reach certain horsepower levels. We're going to start at stock, and then we're going to go to stage 1, right where I'm at, which is about 525 horsepower. And then we're going to work our way all the way up, 600 horsepower, 700 horsepower, etc. Now, disclaimer, every tuner is going to tune the car a little different and recommend different parts. This is just my list, and it'll get you in the right ballpark for what kind of horsepower you're looking for. This is going to be a pretty solid list with a lot of high quality parts, so it might be a little expensive, but with that, let's jump right into the video. If you guys get some knowledge out of this video or like it, please smash that subscribe button. So for my research, the C6 Z06 makes around 470-ish horsepower on a stock car on the dyno. Now that number varies depending on what dyno and temperature, and of course miles that are on the car. If the car's new, it'll probably make more horsepower than an old one. So if your car's stock and you want to increase some horsepower without spending $10,000, I'd recommend shooting for 525 horsepower and only spending about $3 grand if you get the parts used. I personally have American Racing headers on this. You could also get Cook's headers. These brand new, these American Racing long tube headers cost about $2,200, but I got them used for $1,300. Up here in the corner, I'm going to put the horsepower and the cost for used parts and the cost for new parts. So $2,200 for new headers and $1,300 if you find them used like off the marketplace or something. That's what I did, because that's where you can get a big savings, is on the headers, because they're an expensive part. Back or muffler isn't really necessary, but if you want your car to sound good, I'd recommend that. You're going to pick up the most horsepower out of the headers and the X pipe. But this isn't a cheap car, so I would totally put a nice muffler on it. I have a Corsa, as you can see right here. Muffler of the Capac is gonna give it a better sound. The next thing you're gonna need to reach 525 horsepower is you're gonna need a cold air intake. I have a Haltech Killer Bee MF103 on this. Veraram also sells one, but the reason I chose this cold air intake is because Race Proven Motorsports has tuned more C6 Z06s than anyone in the country, and this is the intake they choose to use. They say it has the smoothest mass airflow signal, and that's what you want when you're tuning a car. Shout out to them. If you want your car done right, go to Race Proven Motorsports. That intake is going to cost you about $650. Add that to the list, and I would buy that new. I wouldn't buy that used. They also sell a Kevlar sleeve that can go over the intake. They claim it reduces temperatures by 1 degree. I didn't buy that, but it sounds really cool. If anyone has that, post it in the comments and let me know if it really made a difference. And then the last thing you're going to need to reach 525 horsepower is you're going to need a Pro Tune. Pro Tunes can range anywhere from $500 to $750. And choose your tuner wisely, because it's very important. They do a very good job. The people who tuned my car, Big 3 Racing, they did a very good job. They did everything I was going to ask for, and I didn't even ask for it. Like, they deleted the first through fourth. They turned the radiator fans on at an earlier temperature. They did all the little things. So make sure someone who tunes this has tuned these before. And like I said, Race Proven Motorsports has tuned more Z06s than anyone in the country. So if you really want a good job, go there. Also at this point, you're going to need to change and also upgrade your oil, because when you put the headers on, you're going to need to change the oil. And also I'd recommend doing a trans fluid flush, a differential flush, clutch fluid, and coolant, because you're going to be making more horsepower. The thing's going to be getting hotter. That's not really necessary. The only thing that's necessary is engine oil, because you're going to need it to do the headers, but I recommend it. And also, the two things I'd recommend is to at least do oil and do spark plugs, because you're going to have to be draining the oil and taking the spark plugs out to do the headers anyways. My spark plugs were thrashed at 30,000 miles, as you can see right here. And make sure you get iridium plugs. I bought factory AC Delco plugs because they're iridium and they're in the right heat range. Don't just buy an NGK that's not an iridium plug. So this is going to put us right at 525 horsepower. At least that's what my car made with these mods. If you buy all the parts used and install the parts yourself, you can make 525 horsepower for only $3,000. So that's right around a 65 horsepower increase for only $3,000. It's not too bad. And also, if you were to have someone else install all the parts and buy the parts brand new, you're probably looking at about $5,000. So if you can do it yourself, that'll help out a lot. But if you don't know what you're doing, I highly recommend taking it to a shop. With that, we're moving on to the next horsepower goal, which is going to be 600 wheel horsepower. For the 600 horsepower goal, you're going to need headers, intake, loaded cylinder heads, and a camshaft. The new cylinder heads are going to come with bronze valve guides. The LS7 is notorious for dropping a valve because the valve guides wear out, so it's nice to get that fixed. And you're going to get new valves, you're going to get new valve springs, new ARP head bolts that are stronger, you're going to get hardened push rods, you're going to get a timing chain and tensioner and a gasket kit, head gasket, water pump kit, everything you're going to need to take the heads off. And then you're going to need a camshaft. You should get your cylinder heads and your camshaft to be spec'd together because they need to like work together. You can't just buy any cam and any heads. A lot of companies sell kits. You can get cylinder heads and a camshaft for around $7,500. And then if you send your old heads in, they'll give you like $2,000 back. So it's about $5,000 to get new cylinder heads and a camshaft, plus 3,000 from the previous horsepower level. So you're looking at about $9,000 for all these parts to reach 600 wheel horsepower. The place I'd recommend getting your cylinder heads done is at Race Proven Motorsports or Frankenstein. They do a really good job. Those are like the top two in the country. And this would be the good stopping point for the C6 Z06, because at this point you're probably going to need to upgrade your clutch. You're probably going to need to upgrade your radiator. And honestly, if you push the car anything past 600 wheel horsepower, it's going to start getting unreliable. I don't think the drivetrain can really handle much more, and you're going to have a hard time putting the power down to the ground unless you're just drag racing. The power is almost unusable at 525 horsepower, so this would probably be the best stopping point. The next horsepower level will be about 650 horsepower. For this, you're going to need to add an intake manifold. The atomic intake manifold for the C6 Z06 has been proven to be the best one. I've done a lot of research of people testing on the LS7, like on a bench test in the engine. They tried different intake manifolds, and the atomic Air Force one performed the best. But I like the way the high ram looks, but that one's only for top end. So I would recommend the atomic one. That's going to run you about $1,000, but you could get it used for probably $600. And also for this stage, you're going to want to order different cylinder heads and a different camshaft that's more aggressive. It's going to cost more, but the cylinder heads are going to flow better. They're going to have a higher CFM flow rating, and the camshaft will be more aggressive. Next, you're going to need a throttle body. Throttle body is about $800 for like a 103 millimeter one. And of course, you'll have to upgrade your intake at this point too, because your old intake won't fit the throttle body. And then you're going to need 60-pound fuel injectors. Those will run you about $700, $600, and that should put you right at 650 wheel horsepower. Now, if you really want to go as fast as you can, you're probably going to have to start replacing internals for the next step, like pistons, crank, do a little rotating assembly, refresh, rebuild. So the next horsepower level is going to be 700 horsepower. If you have all this done, all you're really going to have to do at this point is upgrade the fuel system and upgrade to E85 fuel. And that should bump you up about another 50, 60 horsepower and put you right at 700 wheel horsepower. But at this point, your car's not going to be very reliable. It'll be fast, but it won't be reliable. At this point, you probably want to look at getting a new rotating assembly and doing a full rebuild on the engine, because it's just not going to be able to handle it, and the drivetrain's probably not going to be able to handle it. So yeah, in this video, I just wanted to break down the different horsepower levels for this car and what it's going to cost. If you got some knowledge out of this video, smash that subscribe button. Peace.